Is here for 48 young men who will be drafted into the Canadian Football League. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning to those of you watching out west. I'm Rod Black, along with our panel. We've got a lot of panels here today, and I'll introduce them to you with their draft order. First of all, Glenn Suter, first overall, second round.
Yeah, I can't remember what year.
Okay.
84-ish.
Okay.
Let's just say the early 80s. Okay?
Chris.
Leave it at the early
Schultz.
80s.
Chris Schultz drafted in
early 80s.
Matt Dunnigan.
Undrafted.
Yeah, undrafted. But
in the early 80s.
Yeah, but look, you became a Hall of Famer. But yet, this is a very important day and really ignites a player's football career.
You know, Rod, it's about opportunity for these young men, but I'll give you a dose of reality. Yes, you're going to get drafted today, and yes, that's prestigious, but you got to make the football team come July the 1st. And also, you have to become a starter eventually, because when you become a starter in the CFL, you get into your second contract. Then you are a pro football player.
Schultz, this is a Canadian Football League comprised of 20 Canadians, 19 Americans, and 3 quarterbacks. And this is an influx of Canadian talent. It's a great day for the Canadian Football League. First time TSN is covering this draft live on television. And I can't tell you how excited I am for several reasons, because the Canadian content is so important to this league. And you're only as good as your Canadian content. We got some good players here today to draft. And the young kids are aspiring to be just like these players today, creating opportunities for themselves for the future.
And, Matty, this day is big for the franchise as well, big for the organizations, can really change their destiny. And to prove that, I want to take you back in history. Back to 1957, the BC Lions that year had the first pick overall in the draft, and Herb Capozzi had to make a decision between 2 players. One of them was Billy Britton from Western, a running back. So he went right down to the wire and ended up having to flip a coin to make the decision. He went with Billy Britton, the running back. In the second round, the Ottawa Rough Riders got Russ Jackson.
And now you know.
That's how important this could be, Rod.
The rest of the story. I love this because of the intrigue and the mystery, and we saw last year, guys, all the trades that were happening. Calgary Stampeders set themselves up. Dimitri Sumpas and Jesse Newman. Look what those guys did. They became household names, certainly in Calgary. We've already had a trade kind of on the table. We won't know about this deal as BC tries to trade up to get Hamilton's number 3 until those first 2 selections are done. And we're still not sure. So with more on that, let's go to our other panel. Just a drop pass behind me is Farhan Lalji, along with our draft guru, Dwayne Ford, and a couple of guest coaches.
Thank you very much, Rod. And as you can see here on this panel, this is where everything's happening. They don't have much paper up there. We got lots of paper here. We've got BlackBerries, laptops, everything. So we'll bring it all to you, including the details of this trade, which is conditional. Now, BC wants to make sure there's a certain player available to them, and there's also talk, Dwayne Ford, of Calgary potentially trying to trade up with Toronto. Before we get to the trade, I should also introduce Stefan Potasic, the head coach at McMaster University, and Steve Samara, the head coach at St. Mary's. Both of them will be here to break down these players. They've seen them all. If they've not coached against them, they've certainly watched film on them. But, Dwayne, let's start with the trade.
Yeah, you've got those 2 scenarios happening. A lot of talk, first of all, about that BC-Hamilton trade. There are 3 players at the top of this draft, and this is a draft where every team seems to have a very different-looking draft board, except for the top 3 guys. Alberta offensive tackle Simeon Rotier, Laval defensive lineman Etienne Legaré, and, of course, Bishop's running back Jamal Lee. BC had those 4, or currently has those 4, 5, and 6 picks, but they want to get in position to pick one of those 3 guys, most likely Lee, or if still available, they would certainly take a look at Simeon Rotier. That's what they're looking at. Of course, there's a lot of talk that Calgary is also interested in Jamal Lee. They may try to move up and get Toronto's pick at number 2, but that seems far less likely right now.
Your BlackBerry is going to be going big time. And while we wait for that, Steph, you had a chance to coach at McMaster in Hamilton in the Ontario League, so just give us an idea of who some of the guys are that stand out to you from that league.
Good pool of talent. The one young man that stands out is, I think, maybe the most athletic athlete at the line of scrimmage, either side of the ball. Matt Morency from Windsor University, great football family. His dad's the head coach at Windsor. At the university level, he's played tight end, fullback, linebacker. At the CFL, he's going to have to specialize at the O-line, and if they give him an opportunity to put on the weight and develop, he's going to be a real good one.
Steve, Atlantic Canada, you coach at St. Mary's. Who are some of the players that stand out from that region?
The guy that stands out first and foremost is Matt Carter from Acadia. A great receiver. For 4 years has kind of torched us once in a while, that's for sure. And the biggest thing is good speed, 4.5 in the 40, good size, great route runner, and he did a great job down at Acadia.
Thanks, Steve. Now, getting back to the trade and the possible target, Jamal Lee, he is with the Carolina Panthers right now. He is attending their mini camp. I had a chance to talk to him last night, and he said in the 4 days, in the 4 practices that he's had with Carolina right now, they've put in more plays than they did in 4 years at Bishops. Rod?
Son of a great CFL back in Orville Lee. We have 8 teams, of course, in the Canadian Football League. We have 6 rounds in the draft today. We'll have the first 2 rounds here on TSN. A reminder to log on to CFL.ca for the draft tracker. And to officially get things started, we're joined now by the Commissioner of the Canadian Football League, Mark Cohon. Commissioner?
Thanks, Rod, and thank you, TSN, for today's coverage. Today is an important day for the CFL because it means an influx of young Canadian talent into our league. And to get to the Grey Cup and to win the Grey Cup, you need great Canadian players. And the road to the Grey Cup starts right here on TSN on Canada Day on July 1st. So let's officially kick this off. Hamilton, you are now on the clock.
Yes, let the games begin, gentlemen. 8 minutes for the Ticats. They might not need that long. Of course, Simeon Rotier is the name we have heard a lot. Hamilton gets a couple of picks. Maybe that number 3 pick will go to BC. We'll see what Toronto does. Montreal gets 7. Calgary gets 8. And then we'll tell you more about the second round and as we go along here today. Simeon Rotier's name is mentioned as the number 1. Last year, Hamilton selected Dylan Barker as their number 1 pick. We're going to talk a lot about Simeon Rotier, but the name that has been constantly mentioned, as those guys were talking about, is Jamal Lee.
Yeah, what's interesting about Jamal Lee to me is that when he signed with the Carolina Panthers, his draft position probably went down a few notches, but his stock went up. And that's why the BC Lions are looking to possibly trade up and maybe get him. Now, I'm not one to question Wally Buono and his draft strategy. Certainly, he wants to pick the best athlete, and Jamal Lee, the best athlete in this draft. His test scores off the chart. He ran a 4.39, which was as good or better in the 40 than any NFL prospect in their evaluation camps. So no question Jamal Lee would be very tempting. But the bottom line here for me, and what is a bit of a question mark, is if the BC Lions take Jamal Lee, where do they put him? Because Jamal Lee certainly is a tailback in college. They're talking about possibly moving him and playing him at the slot back position. Now, do you want to trade and give up that 13th pick, Matt, and lose that pick in the draft to get up and get Jamal Lee possibly, and then have to make that experiment to move him over to slot back? And that's a big question mark.
Yeah, I'm watching Jamal Lee on tape and certainly at the combine. You know, I don't see him as a slot back. I see him as a true tailback. You know, he's a little stiff in the hips, runs a little upright, but I see him as a tailback. So I can't see BC doing that. I can't see Calgary trying to jump up and leapfrog somebody in the draft to see if, in fact, they can't go all Canadian, possibly move Joffrey Reynolds, in my opinion. Joffrey's getting up in years. They haven't used him a whole lot over the last couple seasons. And now you go with Cornish, Summers, Cote, and then you put in a Jamal Lee there, and it gives them some flexibility up front, Schultze, to possibly look at the right tackle position where Jeff Pilon's getting up in years and maybe use an American in that position.
But the BC Lions, they always go for who they think is the best football player regardless of position. Eventually is going to be an impact player with the BC Lions. And they also are very good at assessing whether these kids can go down to the NFL and make a roster quick, or whether they're going to go on practice roster, or whether they're going to go back. The only kid that the BC Lions have missed on, I think, was back in '04, and that was O.J. Otagwe, who's now the starting free safety, franchise tag for that organization. But when Otagwe came out, nobody thought he would have this level of success, Rod. So the Lions, they look at this young man and they say, this is the best player available. Let's grab him now.
Well, 750 players eligible for the draft. Only 48 will be chosen today, and I know a lot of them are waiting, watching. Gentlemen, start your cell phones. Get ready. A CFL general manager might be calling you. 4:50 on the clock for Hamilton. Welcome back to our Canadian Draft coverage. Don't forget, season ticket and partial season ticket plans are available now from all 8 teams across the CFL. Also, single game tickets will go on sale on June 1st. Go to CFL.ca for more information.
Now, when we talked about the draft last year, Dwayne, we talked about all the top-end offensive line talent coming out of the NCAA. 6 of them got drafted in the first 2 rounds. This draft looks very different.
Yeah, it really does, Farhan. And when you talk about determining the strength of a particular draft class, 2 key factors that you look at. Number 1 is the number of players from NCAA schools. They tend to be a little bit further along that development curve. You're seeing a little more of the finished product. And you also look at the strength, quality, depth of that offensive line class. Last year, you talked about those 6 early picks. There were actually 10 NCAA Division I offensive linemen available in that draft last year. This year, you've got just 1. That's Bill McGrath at Indiana State. Now, things get a little bit interesting here. When you look at the top of the board of top prospects, Simeon Rotier is at the top of this board because he's capable of playing tackle. That's how most teams project him. And in the CFL, one of the big trends has been teams playing Americans at tackle, so they see him as a ratio buster. What makes things interesting for Hamilton with this number 1 pick is Hamilton has a little bit of an ace up their sleeve. Hamilton also holds the number 1 pick in the supplemental draft. And the key prospect in that supplemental draft is another guy who can play tackle. That's Weber State offensive lineman Zach Carlson. So there's a little bit of flexibility here. Carlson is seen as a tremendous athlete as well, a guy who's got very good feet. He had attempted to gain his non-import status in time to be in the regular draft, but that has to be established 3 weeks prior to the draft. He didn't get his application done in time, so he's been bumped to the supplemental draft. But you see, him blocking out on the edge, great feet, good hands, solid punch. The question is whether Hamilton will take both of these guys or whether they just take one. My feeling is with Alex Gauthier as a starting Canadian tackle, they want to add depth and grab both.
All right, and that's it from us for now. With now the first pick coming up, here's Rod.
Thank you very much, Farhan. Chris Bauman 2 years ago, Dylan Barker last year, and for the 3rd straight year, the Hamilton Tiger Cats have the number 1 pick overall, and with it, here is the commissioner.
Well, here we go. With the first pick of the 2009 CFL Canadian Draft, the Hamilton Tiger Cats select Simeon Rotier, offensive lineman from the University of Alberta. Toronto is now on the clock.
Well, no surprise. We've been talking about it. Simeon Rotier, Westlock, Alberta, 6 feet 5 inches, did exceptionally well in a lot of the individual tests at the E-Camp. And now he is a member of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, Dwayne Ford.
Rod, when you talk about the Canadian Football League draft, you talk about 2 kinds of picks. There are picks that are made based on positional need, and there are picks where you pick the best player available. Simeon Rotier for the Hamilton Tiger Cat fills the bill on both counts. You see the athleticism of this young man at 6'5", 300 pounds, moves those feet pretty well, good agility. That's exactly what he's going to need to play out at space at tackle. And the guy he reminds me of, quite frankly, the guy that he's going to be the heir apparent to, and that's Alex Gauthier in Hamilton. Still kind of raw as a football player, but he has all the physical tools to fit into that lineup down the road.
Rotier's a farm kid from Alberta. His parents probably wish he was still able to move some stuff on the farm. He might be able to do that in the offseason. You had a chance to work with him, Steph, at the East-West game, which was held at McMaster University. What'd you think of him?
He's got a great first step. He's got great hands. He's the one guy that is packaged of all the old linemen in this draft that could contribute right away. If he can survive outside and handle the adjusting speed, he's going to be an impact player year 1.
And Steph, that's kind of one of the questions. That does he go to guard to get things started early on in his career? Do you think he needs that?
We tell our recruits at our level, battle for one of those starting positions. And for him, his natural position is tackle. He's going to have his best chance to be a starter at the tackle. 6th, 7th, 8th on our roster, they got to be flexible. They got to be able to do several things. So if he wants to get on that plane, he's got to be able to do some things in a backup role if he's going to be 6', 7 man. So he's going to, big boy, get ready to play inside as well.
And Steve, briefly, I mean, this guy has played very little football. He didn't play in high school, so a lot of scouts believe that the sky is the limit for him. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is, he played a couple of years of junior football with the Edmonton Huskies, and that's where I first saw him, and it was kind of exciting, to see him today. I'm thinking, boy, did we lose out on him not being able to finish the deal on that. But, there's no question he's got the talent.
Yeah, it certainly appears that way, and it's been a very big week for him. Actually, 2 weeks ago, he was married. I mistakenly called him on his honeymoon. Oops, Rod.
Oh, way to go. Way to go, Farhan. Anyway, congratulations. Simeon Rotier, who joins us on the line. Congratulations on being the #1 pick overall, Simeon.
Yeah, thank you.
So what does it feel like? Okay, you got married a couple weeks ago. You get drafted now. Life's good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. And I'm just sharing this time with my family. We're all really excited, and I'm looking forward to moving out with my wife Jen and getting into training camp.
Simeon, Chris Schultz here. Congratulations. I'm curious, you have been evaluated so thoroughly. How do you evaluate yourself? Is there something that is key in your mind that you feel you need to improve on?
I think consistency in my game is always a thing. I need to gain more experience, and I'm looking forward to doing that at the pro level, and just having that opportunity when it's my job to be able to really hone my craft and work on the little details and in the knowledge of the game and just increasing overall strength and ability.
Simeon, Glenn Suter, congratulations again on being the #1 pick overall. After watching Calgary's last year, Dimitri Sumpas and Jesse Newman step in and start, what are your expectations going into year one?
Yeah, I want to be able to compete and contribute right off the bat, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like at the next level, and I hope I'm just honored that Hamilton has taken me, and I believe I can help him out.
Simeon, congratulations. Thank you. Enjoy this with your family and your new football team, the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Thanks a lot.
Simeon Rotier, #1 overall, 2009. We'll get to the #2 pick. The Toronto Argonauts are on the clock. When we return, our coverage of the Canadian Draft will continue. In draft, #2 pick coming from the Toronto Argonauts, Simeon Rotier, #1. First ever University of Alberta player to go #1 overall. And guys, the Hamilton Tiger Cats have needed a lot of help over the last few years, and they've needed some help on the O-line, too.
You know, it's a team, Rod, that has been able to rush the ball fairly well over the last couple of years, but have had real struggle passing the football. In fact, they ranked 8th last year. So Simeon Rotier not only brings them depth, but if he can step in and start, brings a nice, solid Canadian, possibly a tackle to help guys like Quentin Porter, young quarterbacks that are going to need time.
The other thing it does, it puts a lot of pressure on the other Ticat players that are now offensive linemen. I'm telling you right now, the last thing that these guys wanted was an offensive lineman to be drafted in their position.
You know, and Glenn, you asked him his expectations as to where he's going to fit in this year, and he says he wants to compete. Last year, you got Calgary, you got Newman and Zumpas stepping in. Does this change kids' minds coming into the draft, with a mindset of, hey, I could do this? These guys did it. They paved the way. They opened the door. Sounds like this kid has got a mindset. He's going to come in there and be an impact player right away.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sumpas and Newman don't know what they started last year. Let's talk about the Toronto Argonauts and their needs. A 4-14 season last year. They have a lot of needs. They made some changes in the offseason.
I think on the defensive line, they're getting rid of Real Johnson and Adrian Bell. He's getting up in years. I would expect those guys to be looking for some help in that interior defensive line.
All right, with the 2nd overall pick in the Canadian Draft, here's Commissioner Mark Cohen.
With the 2nd pick of the CFL Draft, the Toronto Argonauts select Etienne Légaré, defensive lineman from Université de Laval. Hamilton is now on the clock.
Yes, Etienne Légaré from the Football Factory, Laval University, 6'4", D lineman. You see the numbers. JP Metris Trophy winner, lineman of the year. And with more, here's Dwayne.
Well, the best way to describe Etienne Légaré is that he is the best defensive player for the best defense in the entire nation. One of the biggest defensive linemen in this draft, but also one of the most athletic. Tied for the most bench press reps at that CFL Combine. He's a guy who down the road is going to be able to compete for playing time and offer you some flexibility both at the tackle or defensive end spots. He was a lock to go in this top 2.
Now, I'm not supposed to say what we talk about off air, but when I talked to Stefan Potasic about Légaré, the word he used was freak. That's good, right?
He's a unique athlete. Head coaches tend to develop players at the position they used to play best. And Glenn Constantine is one of the most successful head coaches in the league. He's had a great role model. He is ready to move on, and he is far and away the best D lineman I think I've ever seen. He is a freak, and he's going to turn some heads 8'3", 40, and the athleticism he brings. He could play the 3 technique, the 1 technique inside. He could help out on the edge. He's got some options.
Yeah, Steve, where is he best suited to play? There's some talk about whether or not he can be an impact guy inside or outside.
I see him as an inside guy, as a 3-tech player. You know, I think that's his biggest place. Although, if a team looks at playing a 30 front, he could definitely play the weak side end.
And as a result, the pieces seem to have fallen into place for the BC Lions. And with Rod and an update on that trade, here we go.
Yeah, again, the Hamilton Tiger Cats were on the clock, probably not on the clock right now. Let's go over to the commissioner.
Great, this is exciting. There is a trade. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a trade between the BC Lions and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The Lions received the 3rd overall pick in the draft from Hamilton in exchange for the 6th and 13th overall picks from BC. BC is now on the clock.
So the BC Lions on the clock, and it looks like Jamal Lee will maybe find a home. What do you think, Suits? Is that going to happen?
Yeah,
I mean,
it
makes sense.
This is why they did it. You know, they made this trade and basically gave up the pick because they swapped the 1st round, but they give up that 13th pick overall in the draft. So, again, I'm not going to question an organization that has drafted the likes of Brent Johnson, Paris Jackson, and Jason Claremont, 2 of which have been award winners in this league. But Jamal Lee is so tempting, and I know that the BC Lions strategy has always been, guys, to go for, like you mentioned, Chris, the best athlete. Well, Jamal Lee is the best athlete. Now, if they're going to move him around, which is my question with this, and put him at slot, because I can't see Wally Buono playing him as a tailback with the BC Lions. If they're going to move him around, that's my question, but certainly he's a great athlete.
No, I think he's a running back. I think the way you guys broke it down, I don't think he's a slot back. I think he's a pure running back. But when we met him, just casually during the evaluation camp, the number one thing you take away is this is a really bright kid. This is an articulate kid. This is somebody that if you overwhelmed him with football plays, it would not overwhelm him. He would go to his dorm room and he would study. And one of the keys to being successful in the football is the number of plays you can assimilate mentally and then execute physically, Matt. He has that capability.
Schultz, you look at the team this past offseason, you lose Charles Roberts, you lose Stefan Logan. Stefan Logan lit it up last year, and he was simply exciting. And it looks like they have a position for this kid at the tailback position, in my opinion. They got room for him there. They need help there. I can see this happening. It makes complete sense to me.
Do you think Wally Buono's going to play a Canadian at tailback?
Why not? He's such a talented kid. Give him an opportunity. They need help there.
Okay, yeah, good point.
Well, another thing, Glenn, you can address this. You take a look. Some people are a little gun-shy with drafting players who have potential in the National Football League. Jesse Lumsden a few years ago, he was going to play in the CFL, but remember how on draft day he fell down to number 6. He was a Heck Crichton winner. Jamal Lee has fallen a little bit here. He might have been the number 1 depending on need, but remember what happened to Paris Jackson a few years ago. Yeah. Wally Buono and the BC Lions decided to go after Paris Jackson.
Yeah, Rod, I don't think it's as big a gamble to wait for their NFL aspirations to either transpire or work or not work. I don't think that's as big as a gamble. My question is, when you're going to start a Canadian at tailback, like the Hamilton Tiger Cats have found out over the last few years, you have to have 2 or maybe even 3 that can start. So if Jamal Lee is going to play tailback for the BC Lions, guys, then they need a couple others for depth.
Okay, so the BC Lions now on the clock for the number 3 pick. It's going to be Jamal Lee, don't you think?
I think so.
Okay, so let's go to break.
I hope so.
Jamal will be a BC Lion. Why not? Well, the Canadian Football League introduced their retro concept last year, and this year the league goes bigger with that concept as all 8 teams will host a retro game this season. For more information on the retro matchups and the great retro merchandise that is available, go to CFL.ca. Maybe they'll have an Orville Lee retro jersey. Boy, that might be a good segue to our next pick, 3rd overall in the Canadian Draft.
With the 3rd pick of the CFL Draft, the BC Lions select Jamal Lee, running back from Bishop's University. BC is now on the clock.
Schultze, you pegged that one. Way to go. Way to go. Jamal Lee from Port Coquitlam, son of Orville Lee. Numbers just off the charts. And now a BC Lion, Dwayne.
And the BC Lions are thrilled to have this young man. We talk about him as not just the best running back in this draft. You move him to receiver, he's the best receiver in this draft. He is the most explosive player in this draft, no question about it. You see him breaking a Canadian Football League evaluation camp record in the 40-yard dash, running one of the quickest 20-yard shuttle times ever seen. This guy has all the tools. We know he's got the genes. He's just a football player, wherever you put him.
Yeah, he certainly is. And when his father, Orville, came out of SFU in 1988, he had an opportunity to go to the NFL. He didn't. 2 years later, after a couple of CFL seasons, he tried it, but he was injured and he didn't really get a shot. I talked to Jamal about this. He says, I don't want to say what if later. I want to try it now. Does he have a shot?
I think he absolutely does. The athleticism is off the charts. To break 2 records in the combine is unbelievable. Jesse Lumsden would be there now, I believe. He didn't get injured in camp. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to process the information. It's a different game. Football is still football, and this is one of the most explosive athletes in North America.
And the speed is certainly there.
No question.
Steve, I want to ask you, the move to receiver, that's been the discussion. It looks like the Lions are going to do that. Does he have the skills to make the transition?
Well, the athleticism, I mean, we've used that word over and over about him today, and the fact that he has the athleticism means that he definitely has the ability to be a receiver. Does he have the technically sound right now? No, but will he? Yeah, I think he has his upside.
His father, Orville, runs the Pathfinder Youth Society. He's helped over 400 troubled youth make their way into a much better situation, and he's obviously done a fabulous job with his son, who's a classy young man. Rod?
Yeah, he is. He is at a mini camp right now with the Carolina Panthers, and again, that was one of the issues before this draft began, but Jamal Lee is now a BC Lion, selected 3rd overall. Joining us now, head coach and general manager of the Lions, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. He doesn't sleep anyways. Wally Buono joins us. Hi, Wally.
Good morning, guys, and we're extremely happy about Jamal, and I think as we all said, and we all know, Jamal's not only a great football player, he's also a very good person.
Coach Buono, Matt Dunnigan here. Glenn Suter's already teed me up for my question, and that's pretty simple. It says, where do you see Jamal Lee fit into your plans? I see on the website you've already got to list him on the roster, which is fantastic, and that's Johnny on the spot. Good on y'all. But where do you see him fitting into your roster? At a tailback, or are you going to try to make him into something else like a slot back?
Well, I think, as you know, Matt, in our league, you got to have options, and I think the thing that's really attractive about Jamal is that he gives you options, and a running back that can catch the football is a big plus in this league. So, you know, we're not overly concerned about that. You bring the young man to training camp when you get him. You have a lot of options that you look at, and at the end of the day, you always have to ask yourself, has he improved your football club? And I think a player of Jamal's caliber, of his character, and obviously of his athletic skills has to improve your football club.
Coach Glenn Suter here. Maybe explain your overall philosophy. I know you want the best athlete always, but did you think that there was no chance that you were going to get him in the 4th hole anyway? And that's why you made this deal?
Well, again, we have a plan on who we want, and we know that sometimes you have to give up something to get something, and you know, we believe right now that when we pick the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we'll get equally good players in all those. And I don't know that if we had the 6th pick that we would do all that. So, you know, it's about bringing in the best players who are the best athletes at their positions. And I think the 3rd, 4th, 5th pick for us will do that.
So I imagine by you saying that, you're not going to trade away the 4th and 5th pick right now then?
No, we're not trading that, and that's why for me giving up our 2nd round choice was worth it, because the way I look at it, the 3rd pick, 4th pick, 5th pick are going to come in, compete very, very well, and obviously for us, that's one issue that we want to address.
All right, Wally, I know you're on the clock right now, so go back to work. Congratulations on selecting Jamal Lee.
Well, thank you very much, and it looks good on TV, guys.
All right, thanks. Wally Buono, head coach, general manager, Jamal Lee. Yeah, he's going to look good in a Lions uniform.
He's fast.
He's fast. So are we. We'll be back right after this. Well, the BC Lions, after obtaining that 3rd pick from the Hamilton Tiger Cats, selecting Jamal Lee, will select 4 and then 5. So we're going to hear a lot from the Lions. Simeon Rotier, number 1, Etienne Legaré, number 2, Jamal Lee, number 3. So you address an issue, getting some speed guys. And now where does Wally Buono go?
Yeah, interesting because he's got a couple of holes. Now, Wally Buono has already told us and everybody that they picked the best athletes, so he could go really anywhere. But, you know, when you look at his needs, Baron Miles at free safety is a guy who's not getting any younger, has one more good year in him, I'm sure, but that's something they could look at in the future, a Canadian defensive back. And also, with Jay Pottinger guys going, possibly some help at linebacker as well, maybe some depth in behind Javi Glatt.
You know, I like me some linebackers, right? I never have a problem with a linebacker being drafted, especially, you know, physical linebackers like to mix it up. And Wally's got a history of drafting fantastic Canadian linebackers. And, you know, they're starting one right in the middle in Javier Glatt. And I think Pottinger leaves a void, and I think they're probably looking to fill that.
And the other thing Coach Buono likes and the BC Lions like are tough guys. It's hard to evaluate sometimes who is a tough guy, but this pick, the athletic guy, I guarantee you this pick is based on the next tough guy.
And as Wally said, he's not intent on trading any of these picks right now. He's going to select 3, 4, and 5. And so here we are, number 4. Once again, here is the commissioner.
Well, here's another one for BC with the 4th pick of the CFL Draft. The BC Lions select James Yurachuk, linebacker from Bishop's University. BC is again now on the clock.
BC Lions owning this first round, and here is James Yurachuk, who has shot up the ranks really from that Central Scouting Bureau. Canadian Football League put together the Scouting Bureau out of Brampton, Ontario, out of Bishops. So another Bishops player goes in the first round. Here's Dwayne.
Yeah, they're starting to look a lot like the British Columbia Gators out there right now. But James Yurachuk, again, a tremendous athlete. Rod, you mentioned him shooting up the charts after the Combine. The Combine is basically measuring that athletic ability. Yurachuk, 6'2", over 220 pounds, and is probably going to get even bigger. But this guy can run, he hustles, he's got energy, tremendous range. He's going to look good in that BC defense down the road.
He has started every football game he has played in the last 8 years, going back to his 9th grade year in high school. This guy is a tough guy, and he's also going to be able to help this team in a number of spots on special teams, Steph.
He's a hard worker. Larry Justanis works him out at McMaster on a regular basis. We've seen him up on the track in the offseason. This kid made the most of the Combine and took his stock from maybe second round up to the first round, and he's going to join a teammate and have a friend to get through training camp, which will help. Yeah,
they certainly bashed heads a lot when they were at Bishops, but is this the player who can do more than just special teams in the CFL?
I think so. He can play a couple positions at the linebacker spot, whether it's Will or the middle linebacker, and then his speed and his energy on special teams, that'll dress him all by itself.
Yeah, and the Lions want to have some linebacking depth behind Javi Glatt. What does this guy do better? Is he a better pass defender or a better run defender?
Well, I think he's a better run defender. I think he covers sideline to sideline with his athleticism. He's got the speed to do that, and he's physical. He's not afraid to put his nose in there and smack somebody.
Yeah, and like I said, he did that against Jamal throughout his career. You know, when I talked to him about why he wound up going to Bishops, he said, among other things, it was the beautiful ladies. And I'm sure he'll find a few of those in Vancouver, Rod.
I don't think that's ever put on a Scouting Bureau sheet, but oh well. Why don't we ask James, who's watching now? Where are you watching from, James? Congratulations.
Hi, I'm just watching from home here with my family, and we're just very excited over here.
Hey, well, what an exciting day, not only for yourself, but Bishop's going back-to-back here, you and your teammate Jamal Lee.
Yeah, this is a dream come true. Like, I couldn't have asked for anything more. I was hoping in my head the whole time that BC would pick me sometime with those picks, and they came through, so I'm really happy right now.
James, Chris Schultz here. Tell me a little bit about the influence of the coaching staff at Bishops, because it seems like you're pretty well athletically ready, but you also have a great reputation as a tough guy. You credit your time at Bishops for developing that intangible about being a tough guy?
To credit my linebacking coach and defense coordinator Ray Gagnon, and also the head coach, Coach Blue. Like, he gives us all the tools and everything to prepare for each game, and we just got to go in there and play.
James, last year the BC Lions acquired Nick Araki, and he made a big impact on special teams. And you heard the guys talking on the back panel there about, you know, your play on special teams and how you're great with the ball in front of you and flying down there and fearless. You're an athletic player. Do you see yourself making an impact right away on teams?
Yeah, I'll do my best. Like, ever since my first year, I've been playing on every special team, so I'll come in there and try to do my best on special teams, see if I can make a difference for this team this year.
James, the final one, and I asked Simeon the same question, is your expectations, because of what's happened in Calgary last year, there's this feeling now that guys can step in and become starters in a hurry. Do you feel like you could do that?
Well, I'm not going to keep that out of the equation. I'm going to go on the camp and do everything I can, and we'll just let the coaches make the decisions from there.
Hey, James, how are you going to celebrate today?
I'm just with my family. I'll just have a barbecue out back and, and just relax in the sun. Beautiful Brampton, Ontario.
All right. Well, congratulations, young man. We'll see you at training camp.
All right. Thank you.
James Yurachuk. Nice to hear that.
Sounds like a humble kid, huh?
You got it. BC, you're still on the clock. Wally's busy. Well, his name has been mentioned, Matt Carter. Will he be going to the BC Lions? We can see now Simeon Rotier, number 1, Etienne Legaret, number 2. Running back Jamal Lee and James Yurachuk for 3 and 4. BC on the clock for pick number 5. And we've talked a lot. You know, Wally Bono had a little bit of turnover, Matt Dunnigan, here this offseason. And, you know, the BC Lions are one of these powerhouse teams. Every year we talk about them potentially getting to the Grey Cup. Wally has had a lot of work to do in this offseason.
Well, he has, but Wally is not a coach to stand pat. You know, he's always looking to improve, and I think he tells his players, you know, we're always looking to improve on our talent, and you're hired basically, you know, and from the day you're hired, we are going to try to find somebody better than you, and this offseason is no different. And I think they need some help, and I think when you look at the disappearance of 2 running backs, Jamal Lee makes sense. You know, he loves some linebackers. That makes sense. And I know that Glenn, you talked about Claremont being gone, and it would make sense to try to get a receiver.
Well, yeah, I mentioned safety or defensive back, but absolutely. Jason Claremont is now a Saskatchewan Rough Rider, so some depth. They're going to move Paris Jackson to his spot, but maybe depth at Canadian receiver.
Well, exactly, and maybe that's where Matt Carter fits in. We'll see here. BC, again, the troika of picks here in the first round. They traded the next pick away to the Hamilton Tiger Cats, but here's Wally and the BC Lions' 3rd successive pick.
Well, Wally has been busy with the 5th pick of the CFL Draft. The BC Lions pick Matt Carter, wide receiver from Acadia University. Hamilton is now on the clock.
So there he is, Matt Carter from Acadia out of Kelowna. Interesting that, again, Wally's gone for some homegrown talent as well from British Columbia. But Matt Carter, 4-time AUS All-Star, a guy with good hands, and he impressed at the E-Camp as well, Dwayne Ford.
Oh, he sure did. So much, again, that raw athletic ability is what Matt Carter brings to the table, but it goes a step beyond with him. He's a guy who is probably the most refined, smoothest receiver in this draft, the player who is most ready to play. The panel mentioned earlier, BC has that need for a receiver. Matt Carter is a guy likely capable, physically capable of stepping into a CFL lineup, able to help them out a little bit.
He started all 4 seasons at Acadia, which means Steve Samara saw plenty of them. What separates this kid from the rest of the receivers in this class?
Well, I think what he also offers is he can play both inside and outside receiver. He did that for Acadia throughout his career. I think he's a great route runner. And anybody that has the skills to be able to get open, find windows, he's the guy to do that. Also, speed. And, you know, athleticism, we've said that word many times, and he's another guy with it.
He's a guy that always seemed to get it done in the biggest games as well, didn't he?
Definitely. Against us, he always had big games, and I like to think we were a good competition against them. And he definitely was a guy that was always there to make the big catch when they needed it.
Steph, the Lions always draft guys that can come in and make a difference on special teams right away. As a receiver, can this guy do that?
That's the one question mark. If you're a marquee CIS player, you don't necessarily play a lot of special teams. I've had the privilege of working with Matt on a few clinics, and he's a one-rep guy. You tell him something once, and he locks and loads, and he's got it for life. So he picks up things real quick. His speed and athleticism, no question he can play. He'll pick it up, and he'll be just fine on specials.
You talked about his ability to break down a defender one-on-one, and he does that quite well. Can you give us some more details?
he's so fast at the CIS level, he could be a terrible route runner and still get open. To his credit, he's polished and he does all the little things, doesn't waste steps in and out of cuts. He's going to need all that efficiency because the competition and the deep, if he isn't polished, he ain't getting open.
Dwayne, we're 5 picks into it now. Let's take a look at our rankings and who else is available there as far as receivers go.
Well, I mean, really, there have been no surprises so far. Matt Carter was likely the top receiver on most teams' boards. You start to move down the list a little bit. One of the guys who's been talked about a great deal would be Matt Lambros from Liberty, probably the number 2 guy on the list as far as the receivers go. You continue to move down. There's a pretty good group there. So, you know, it's a position where not necessarily a lot of outstanding guys who are going to jump into the first round, but there is some depth as we move into round 2.
Carter did not play football in high school until the 12th grade because he was a national level skier. His goal at the time, compete in Vancouver in 2010. He'll be doing just that, although it'll be in a different sport, Rod.
There you go, Farhan. Thanks so much. Hamilton Tiger Cats, again, are on the clock right now with Commissioner Mark Colhan. A chance to chat a little bit about the off-season for the Canadian Football League. There really is no off-season. It's draft day, of course, today. But, Mark, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the Ottawa situation and finally some clarity coming there, and it looks like a team will be going there.
Yeah, a little bit of clarity there. You know, last week the City Council voted to negotiate with our group there to rebuild Frank Clair Stadium. There's a 60-day process as part of that negotiation, then a public process for about another 30 days. But Jeff Hunt said it right. This is sort of the first round of the playoffs. We sort of won the first round. There's a lot more steps to go, but it's looking positive.
So I hate to put you on the spot, but when are they up and running?
I don't know. I mean, I think, you know, if they can move relatively quickly and put a shovel in the ground, hopefully by the end of this year, they could be up and running by 2011. That's probably the fastest they can do it.
You get Ottawa in. What about another piece of the puzzle? I know you like to have an even number of teams.
Well, you know, that's interesting. The history of this league has been more 9 teams. But, you know, we are talking about doing something in Moncton, a regular season game in Moncton starting in 2010 to help the people out in the Atlantic provinces who love our game. So that's something we're looking at.
Before we go to break quickly, I want to ask you about the economy and how it's affecting the league right now.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, this is a gate-driven economy. Season ticket renewals have been strong. We're renewing a lot of our sponsors. I think because we are affordable and part of the fabric of this country, we're doing well right now.
All right. Hamilton Tiger Cats are on the clock. Commissioner, thanks for joining us. Number 6 overall will be announced in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Stay with us as our coverage of the Canadian Draft continues on TSN. CFLshop.ca is your destination for all merchandise. That is CFL. It includes everything a CFL fan could want, including authentic apparel from Reebok. Go to CFL.ca for more information. And welcome back, everyone, to our continuing coverage. First time ever broadcast live on TSN of the Canadian Draft. We've had 5 picks so far. BC just had 3 in a row. They traded their 6th overall to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And when we talk about need, this is a franchise in need of a lot over the last few years.
Without question, they have to try and snap out of this the losing ways. And, you know, this may be a huge offseason for the Hamilton Tiger Cats when you can consider that they have Dylan Barker coming back. Last year, he broke his leg in the second preseason game, first-round draft pick. He could be a starter this year. They already have Simeon Rotier in their first pick overall this year. They may get Corey Mace, a second-round pick a couple of years ago, may sign him. And in the supplemental draft, they may get Zach Carlson plus whoever they pick here. This could be a huge offseason for the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
And you can go back to 2007. Who did they draft first? Chris Bauman. And he's really starting to produce for them. 48 catches this past year, almost 600 yards and 3 touchdowns. So they've drafted well, and I think they're going to, you know, and they're, like you said, could be a big day for this team.
Well, I think the number 1 key player for the Hamilton Tiger Cats is Augie Berenicia. Can he establish himself as a middle linebacker? If he does, that gives them tremendous freedom as it relates to the ratio.
Well, as we've talked about before with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, there is a lot of need. Defensive line, receiver perhaps. Let's take a look now. Here's the commissioner once again with the 6th pick overall.
Well, we're back to Hamilton with the 6th pick of the CFL Draft. The Hamilton Tiger Cats select Darcy Brown, wide receiver from St. Mary's. It's now Montreal's turn, so Montreal is now on the clock.
Well, there is a coach behind us who is cheering on this selection from St. Mary's. Darcy Brown, really off the charts in terms of this selection. Great numbers in the E-Camp, but he moves up a big way, Dwayne Ford.
Well, this definitely qualifies as a little bit of a reach for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, Rod. But what they see in Darcy Brown is a young man who played receiver in college, but brings a combination of size, physical skill necessary to make the move to that fullback position. A little bit of need created there for them in the offseason. Remember, they lost Julian Radlin to retirement last year, and Jeff Piercy suddenly deciding this offseason to retire and go after some academic pursuits. So Darcy Brown is going to have some adjusting to do to learn that fullback position. He's going to have to learn on the fly in Hamilton's training camp.
Now, with all due respect to you, there might be one guy in this panel who knows this guy a little better.
Absolutely.
Steve, you know him as well as anyone. You've dealt with him for 4 years now. Just Darcy Brown, tell us about him.
Well, this is an exciting day for him and his family. Great people, and you know, Darcy has worked extremely hard. He bought into a lot of what we were doing from our strength and conditioning, and I think the numbers showed once he got to the E-Camp. He's a bit of a tweener right now. You know, we had him playing slot back for us. You know, he's a 250-pound slot back, which is a little unique in itself. And I see him moving maybe to an H-back slash fullback type of guy, and I think he's going to have a long career.
Now, you didn't necessarily use him that way, and he only had 8 passes this year. But yet, what about him made him desirable to CFL scouts?
Well, I think the big thing is he's 6'3" and he's 250. A lot of the questions that were asking me before the draft was, can he be a guy to play fullback? And during our spring ball, what we did was we actually put him in that situation, and you know, then we could give a little bit better assessment. And yeah, I really do think he can.
And Rod, this may lead to a run of receivers, as we've seen in drafts past. Next on the list might be Spencer Armstrong and Eric Lambros, both players that are playing in the NCAA right now.
All right, tell Coach to hang on there for 1 minute. I'm sure he wants to chat with Darcy Brown, who is taken 6th overall by the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Congratulations, Darcy.
Thank you very much.
Where are you watching?
I'm back in Mississauga with my family.
Well, what does it feel like, again, to be in the first round, to be a first-round pick? What does that feel like to you?
It's very exciting. Yeah, it's a little bit unexpected. I was kind of a relative unknown going into E-Camp, and I just showed up in the best shape I could and obviously impressed the right people.
Hey, Darcy, Chris Schultz here. You're 6'3", you're 251 pounds. Now,
That's right.
if you have a preference, where would you like to play? Where do you see yourself fitting?
Right now I'm told that I fit in more of like a receiving fullback, kind of H-back that like Coach Samara mentioned. So, yeah, I'm just willing to do whatever I can to help the team. Wherever they want to put me, I'm fine with it.
Hey, Darcy, I know you're excited, but another guy who's equally excited wants to chat with you. Here's Coach.
All right.
Darcy, great job, buddy.
Thank you very much, Coach.
Way to represent.
Thank you.
What are you going to do today to celebrate?
Just hang out with my family, just take it easy in Mississauga, maybe even go for a workout later.
Well, hey, you don't have to go too far for training camp either.
That's right, just down the highway.
All right. Darcy Brown, congratulations. You are a member of the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Thank you very much.
Coach Samara, he's got a tear in his eye back there. Number 7 coming up. Montreal Alouettes are on the clock when we come back. Montreal Alouettes are currently on the clock. Jim Pop and company in Montreal, and again, a team that went to the Grey Cup last year on home soil, in their home stadium, lost to the Calgary Stampeders. Mark Trestman did an amazing job last year with that team. His first year as a head coach in the Canadian Football League. What do you think the Owls are looking for?
You know, the nice thing about the Montreal Alouettes, guys, I think, is that they have a lot of depth in the Canadian talent, and I think that's a tribute to Jim Pop and the job that he's done there. But the bottom line here is there's a couple spots. I mean, Ben Cahoon's not getting any younger. The offensive line, they have a couple of, they could look for depth there. And you know, when I think about their running back position, Kerry Carter right now is the Alouettes fullback, and certainly he is capable of playing in a lot of different spots. Kerry Carter is a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can play tight end, and he's a fullback. But Mike Villamick retired this year in the offseason. He was their backup fullback. So that might be a spot that they want to look at to try and get some depth.
Well, I look at last year, and they drafted Shane Emery, a linebacker. Now, Shane Emery didn't play a whole lot of linebacker for the Montreal Alouettes, but he led that football team in terms of special teams efficiency and in tackles. So as much as they're going to go for an individual, they're extremely aware of whether a certain player fits in terms of covering kicks, returning kicks, and what his abilities are. So I really believe whoever they draft is going to have that flexibility.
Props go out to Joey Abrams, too, and Marcel Desjardins,
Yes,
right?
yes,
you know, those
absolutely.
guys do a great job up here in Canada scouting these players. And I can tell you, too, that Jim Pop does like to draft the most outstanding athletes. And the only weakness I can see is in depth-wise for the Montreal Alouettes' defensive line, where they only have Robert Shaw. Jeff Robert Shaw is a defensive lineman. And I think if the Alouettes are going to draft anywhere, in my opinion, they need some depth at defensive line.
So they're all over the board, really.
Yeah, and this is a team, again, that played so well last year, got to the Grey Cup game. Not a lot of changes really necessary in Montreal, don't you think?
Well, that's right. I mean, that's why. And they have great depth. They have great Canadian talent. So they're looking at the future, likely.
Okay, so the Alouettes will select now, and the Calgary Stampeders after that. And here's the commissioner.
So it's now the Owls' turn. With the 7th pick of the CFL Draft, the Montreal Alouettes select Dylan Steenbergen, offensive lineman from the University of Calgary. Calgary is now on the clock.
There it is, Dylan Steenbergen. Perhaps the Calgary Stampeders, Dwayne Ford, might have taken a look at Dylan Steenbergen. They select next.
Yeah, no doubt the Calgary Stampeders were taking a look at Dylan Steenbergen. In fact, he's out on the field with the Dinos right now working out. But the Calgary Stampeders were undercut by their Grey Cup rivals, who get another of the more athletic offensive linemen in this draft. He's a guy that people see with a lot of upside, decent athletic ability, nice feet. Again, someone who may project as a tackle in the Canadian Football League. If not, they do have the flexibility to play him inside at that guard spot.
6'4", 283 pounds, Steph. Does he need to move inside the guard, at least early in his career?
He's just a baby. He's got lots of growing to do. I know he can put lots of stuff on that frame. He'd be protected inside, but he does have the speed and the athleticism. If they invest in him, he can play the tackle spot. I had the privilege of working with him on the Under-20 World Junior tournament, and he just loves football. He was the last guy to leave the field every single day, playing touch, moving around. He's an athlete, passionate about the game. Great kid.
Now, Steve, his coach in Calgary is someone you know quite well because you worked for him, Blake Neal. And when he talked about playing for Blake, he said that completely turned around the team and him and his approach to the game. What would he have learned in that situation?
Well, I think the biggest thing that Calgary and Blake brought to Calgary was a winning attitude. You know, he put a lot of pressure on these kids to step up, and I think Dylan's a prime example of recognizing that, you know, if you want to get to the next level, these are the things you have to do. I mean, I watched the kid play on tape, and the thing that was most impressive was just how physical and how aggressive he is, and that's Blake's style for sure.
So, Dwayne, we've seen a couple of linemen go, offensive linemen. Tell us about the main offensive linemen that are left over the next few picks here.
Well, the number one guy to me, Farhan, is Matt Morency from the University of Windsor. You heard Steph talk about him off the top. Very athletic guy. Some teams were down on Matt Morency a little bit because he came into the Canadian Football League's evaluation camp light at about 262 pounds, and teams felt he was a little too small to play at that weight. Morency's natural playing weight is about 285 or 290. He's back up to that. He's not worried about testing and running fast 40s for combines anymore. This kid may be the one who gets into a CFL lineup first on the offensive line.
When he is not playing football, he is fly fishing. He loves doing that up at Castle Mountain, and he says that it's an absolutely addicting thing, but the only thing similar to that is the concentration to football. After that, it's completely opposite, Rod.
Yeah, we'll try to get a hold of him. He's not fly fishing today. He's at spring camp, of all things. Dylan Steenbergen, congratulations. He is now a member of the Montreal Alouettes. The Calgary Stampeders will select next. Number 8 overall. The official online home of the Canadian Football League is CFL.ca. Up-to-date news, stats, and scores from around the league. Follow rounds 3 to 6 of the draft when we go off the air on our draft tracker. The defending Grey Cup champions will select the final pick of the first round when we come back to the Canadian Draft on TSN.
In every game, some will fuel a fire within the players. Others will bring the fans to their feet. A single moment can change the outcome of a game and even define an entire season.
That's what we are, champions!
Experience every moment of the 2009 Calgary Stampeders. Season tickets start at just $139, giving you first rights on your seats for the Grey Cup Championship. Stampeders football, Calgary's horsepower.
We got them right where we want them.
John Hupnagel and the Stamps are champs.
The champs are on the clock with the number 8 pick overall, the last pick of this first round. Team obviously loaded after their Grey Cup championship. Not a whole lot of turnover, guys, but Chris Schultz, let's revisit. A year ago at this time, we all were kind of, I don't want to say bewildered, but puzzled a little bit about the rookie offensive lineman and said, hey, they're rebuilding, they're reloading.
You know, Rod, of all the things that happened in the Canadian Football League last year, my number one surprise was how well the 2 offensive guards for the Calgary Stampeders played, Dimitri Supis and Jesse Newman. The reason is that after a period of time, you get burned out on football as a rookie. These guys are used to 11 or 12 games at the college level. You get into that 18th week, sometimes your efficiency, your willingness to mix it up leaves you. That never happened to these guys. They kept their intensity all the way through. Now, the question is, did the Calgary Stampeders get lucky on this? Far from it. Those 2 young men were so well researched, and they understood that they both played a lot of college football. Because of that, they had confidence to both play a lot of pro football.
Shows you on the other side of the ball, you talked to defense coordinator Chris Jones. You know, although that defense lit it up, we talked a lot about their man-to-man coverage last year, how they stuck with that and how it paid off for them in the Grey Cup championship. Chris Jones is looking to add some depth there, I believe, because Wes Lysick is the only guy in the middle, and to me, they can improve on that position as well as linebackers. Chris says he expects his entire linebacking core possibly to turn over next year.
Possibly defensive back then in the draft here, possibly a running back again. I know that there were rumors out there that they were looking at Jamal Lee, the Calgary Stampeders wanted to trade up. That didn't happen. Jamal Lee is now a BC Lion. Possibly Eric Lee out of Weber State, who was a teammate of Demetrius Supis, as a matter of fact. Maybe he's the next guy on the list, because with John Cornish in the lineup right now, like you mentioned earlier, Matt, the Calgary Stampeders could look at playing a Canadian tailback and do something with Joffrey Reynolds down the line. Certainly John Cornish at the end of last season did enough to prove to the Calgary Stampeders and John Huffnagel that he could possibly come in and be a starter, be an every down player. Now, if you could add a backup, add a little bit of depth at Canadian running back, put John Cornish there, and then maybe make a deal with Joffrey Reynolds as a possibility.
George Cortez did an absolute fabulous job of incorporating Cornish into the lineup and used him in a smart way to get him ready for that position this year.
All right, Calgary Stampeders are ready to make their selection. Let's go over to Commissioner Mark Cohon.
Okay, here we go for the champs. With the 8th and final pick of the first round, the defending champs select Eric Fraser, defensive back from Central Michigan. Saskatchewan is now on the clock.
So there is our first NC2A player, Eric Fraser out of Burnaby, BC. Final selection in this first round. The Calgary Stampeders, they were the big winners in the draft a year ago. We'll see how it all plays out a year from now. But what do you think of this pick, Dwayne?
I love this pick for the Calgary Stampeders. Calgary's in a position that they've got a lot of depth, which means they can go after the best player available. And that best player, Eric Fraser. The guy's got a terrific resume. He's been a 2-year starter at a Division I school. He's played 3 different positions in the secondary. And what Chris Jones loved, you heard Matt talking about how they love to play that man defense. They can do that because Chris Jones loves guys who can run. Being able to run is Eric Fraser's greatest asset.
And this player was certainly expected to be in the first round. He certainly belongs there. And the first NCAA player taken is, as you mentioned, which was certainly not the case last year. We're 8 picks into it now. Your thoughts on the first round?
Well, I don't think there have really been any surprises outside of the Darcy Brown selection for Hamilton. As we said at the time, Hamilton was making a little bit of a pick based on need, and they got a guy, don't get me wrong, athletically, Darcy Brown's a first rounder. Physically, he's a young man who's ready to play. But overall, things are going basically expected to plan. According to plan, you're seeing the top guys at each position off the board early.
Now, as you look there, I mean, were there any surprises? We talked about Brown going at number 7, but beyond that, did it pretty much go according to form?
Well, for the most part, I would say that it really did. I mean, to me, if there is one surprise in that, I'm a little bit surprised, quite frankly, that Eric Fraser fell as far as he did. My feeling is that he was arguably the best player in this draft, slipped a little bit, A, because he's got another year of eligibility, but B, because he had that ankle injury at the end of the year. For those who don't know, Eric Fraser broke his ankle in the last game of the season and has since had surgery. Seems to be recovering well, so it looks like this could be a steal for the Calgary Stampeders.
Yeah, he had 2 pins put into that ankle. He is training fully in the weight room right now and expects to begin running this week. Rod?
Nice way to celebrate his birthday, which is coming up early next week, his 20th birthday, actually. 22nd birthday for Eric, and congratulations to him. And of course, he is now a member of the Calgary Stampeders and their secondary. Now the Saskatchewan Roughriders get a selection here. They had no picks in the first round. Here's what this team has projected, what we'll see some other players seeing time and their draft needs at fullback and best available player. We hear that one a lot, don't we?
Without question, you know, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Rod, I think are in a very unique situation in that they can probably play their allotment of Canadians all on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, with the addition of Jason Claremont, Andy Fantus, you know, and the receiving core, Getzlaff that they have on that side, and of course their offensive line, I think they can almost play all 7 starters on that side, which gives them a lot of flexibility. The one thing that they did is they lost Scott Gordon, their free safety, in the offseason. They may be looking at a defensive back down the road to fill that safety spot. But I think there's some flexibility and some options here, guys, for Ken Miller.
Well, I think the biggest thing about the Riders is they have 6 Canadian receivers that all have playing experience. So I'd be shocked if they tried to add some depth in that area. They've got 2 good defensive tackles, Sholigan from the previous draft, and also Scott Schultz as a defensive tackle position. So that's solidified. I agree with you, Glenn. I would think they're going to go for a defensive back because if they can find a cornerback to combine himself with Laron Mitchell, the other Canadian cornerback that they have, 2 Canadians on the field corner, that would be perfect.
We've seen Saskatchewan over the last 2 years overcome more adversity than any other team in the Canadian Football League.
On field and off field.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about on the field and with their players and players stepping up. And that is because they have excellent Canadian depth and depth overall across the board. And so that's why it's difficult for us here to pinpoint where their needs are, because they have got quality depth, and they've proven that over the last 2 years, suffering all the adversity they've seen.
And that is one thing that Eric Tillman and the gang in Regina have been able to do the last couple of years. Think about all of the injuries and all of the players that have been, and a quarterbacking situation. I know they're not going to address it here, but this is a team that really has some serious question marks.
Well, I'm a big Darian Durant fan. I think you give him a training camp, you coach the kid in terms of the details of the game. I think he has the character and the ability to lead the Riders. Now, the other issues for the Riders is they still have to solidify that defense. They don't have Richie Hall as a defensive coordinator. That is different. Gary Echeverry gets in there. He runs a different type of system. I think that's a transition for the players, too, running Echeverry's system as opposed to Richie Hall.
Well, yeah, and they also lost Maurice Lloyd to the Edmonton Eskimos in the linebacking core, and Anton McKenzie, a linebacker. Now, I don't think that the Rough Riders are going to change the ratio at linebacker just yet, because they don't have to, because of their Canadian talent on the offensive side of the ball.
The clock is 5 minutes in the second round, by the way, just in case you were wondering, and it's coming down to deadline. I think the commissioner's just getting the information right now. What do you think? If you were the Riders right now, what would you address right now?
Well,
what position would you address?
For me, guys, you can always go with offensive line depth. I mean, that's always good, and there's still some good ones out there as far as offensive line, but I think defensive back might be an area they look at.
For immediate help, because last year they got 0 games out of their draftees, and I think for immediate help, they got to go offensive line.
You too, Schultz?
I'm saying cornerback.
Cornerback?
Yeah, the cornerback. Your position.
All right, there we go. Mr. Commissioner, and the suspense, please.
I know Riders fans have been waiting for a while for this one. So with the 9th pick of the CFL Draft, the Saskatchewan Rough Riders select Tamon George, defensive back from the University of Regina. Toronto is now on the clock.
Schultz. Defensive back Tamon George. Hometowner. And getting a chance to be selected here. The 9th pick overall, first pick of the second round. Somebody else was the first pick, a DB of the second round. Glenn Suter, back in here before.
That was a long time ago.
Let's go to Dwayne Ford.
Saskatchewan Roughriders staying local, as they've seemed to do a lot this offseason. Of course, adding Jason Claremont and Mike Stadnick. Yet another Regina native. He's going to be wearing green and white. Tamon George, star at U of R. Played corner for the Regina football team. A lot of teams stayed away from this guy. Terrific athlete, also a very bright young man. Great story about him and how he impressed during the interview process at the Combine. One of the big things for him, business economics major, started talking about in his interviews how to fix the recession.
We could all use a bit of that. Steph, where does he play? Does he stay at corner, or does he move inside to safety?
I think the CFL is starting to see that the CIS kids can play that wide side corner. He's been a short side corner in college, but the skill set is slightly different. He can make a living on that wide side. He's physical. He reads quarterbacks well. It's a bit more of a reading type position. His man-to-man skills will help him out there as well. I think he can play the wide side corner in the CFL.
Yeah, and he says that it was very difficult for him to get a feel for what he could do defensively because teams in Canada West barely tested this guy this year. The big thing he thinks he does well, he says he's a very disciplined guy. He gets up, or he goes to bed at 10 every night, gets up at 6:30 every morning without fail. Rod?
Well, there you go. What a thrill to be drafted by your hometown. Play college there and get drafted there. And he could also work on the salary cap if he ever needs it. We'll be back. Well, Taman George is the #1 pick in the second round to Saskatchewan. Here's a recap of the first round again. Simeon Rotier, the #1 pick. The Toronto Argonauts took Etienne Legaré, Jamal Lee, James Irichuk, Matt Carter, all to BC, Darcy Brown, Dylan Steenbergen, Eric Fraser, and then again Taman George. Back with you in our panel, along with Glenn Suter and Matt Dunnigan, Chris Schultz, and our backup panel over there. Rod Black with you as we get into our second round now. We never really had a chance, Schultz, in the first round to talk a little bit more about Etienne Legaré and the Toronto Argonauts pick. They select right now.
Well, I think the young man is in a perfect situation because the player ahead of him is Adrian Obelli. Now, Adrian Obelli had a great experience early in his career because he had Ed Fillion as a defensive tackle that kind of made a mentor out of Adrian Obelli. Now, Ed's a tough kid, sometimes controversial, great guy off the football field. But I talked to Belly later in the week, and I said, they may draft a guy right in your position. What are your thoughts about that? He says, Schultz, this is perfect for me because there's nothing I would enjoy more than being the same type of mentor that Ed Fillion was to me. So when you talk about all the circumstances, Rod, coming together for a player, I really think this is one guy that is in a perfect situation.
And he gives him a kiss when he comes to camp.
Always.
Always, he does. I hate when he kisses you.
I do too, man.
Oh, I know.
That ain't right.
10th selection coming up here, second pick of the second round, and here's the commissioner.
Okay, we're back to the Argos with the 10th pick of the CFL Draft. The Toronto Argonauts select Matt Lambros, wide receiver from Liberty University. Now Edmonton is on the clock.
Edmonton's on the clock, and there it is, Matt Lambros. His dad played with the Edmonton Eskimos as a linebacker out of Calgary, so Matt Lambros will go to the Toronto Argonauts. Dwayne Ford.
And Matt Lambros is a young man who had limited playing time in college, but a guy who has, again, the physical assets that make him worthwhile as a project, a developmental project for the Toronto Argonauts. They've got some depth at receiver. They don't need him to play right away, but this is a guy who's 6'3", over 200 pounds. Terrific from the line of scrimmage. At the evaluation camp, did a very nice job getting his release moves. And as a Canadian receiver, he's probably going to play that wide side receiver spot where he's going to be up on the line. Does a nice job getting off the jams, may be able to make some things happen with his speed from that spot.
And the big question about him coming into this process was the fact that he hasn't played enough. I mean, we were watching a lot of his practice film. Steph, you watched him. How much refinement does this kid need?
The practice film is tough to evaluate. To see him at the eval camp and run routes and get off the jams was very reassuring. Fundamentally, receivers are a little bit different up here. DBs will protect their cylinder, i.e. take your head off at 2 yards, 12 yards, or 22 yards. He'll adjust quickly. He's a good athlete, and he has all the physical tools. It is a bit of a project, and if the Argos invest, they'll be happy.
And they've got to like his speed as well, listed at 4.4 right now, as fast as anyone at E-Camp.
No question. Wide side, wide out, that's what you need. You need to stretch the defense, not allow the wide side corner to crash down on some of your seamers, and the nuances of the game will come quickly to him, and he's got the tools to do what he needs to do.
Steve, with that type of speed, can he also play inside and be a vertical stretch guy to clear safeties out for other receivers?
Absolutely. I think one of the nice things about a guy of his size and speed is that when you can get in that seam quickly, as Steph was mentioning about the corner coming over, you can get in that seam real quick.
What about special teams? Because for him to make that roster, because they have some depth at that position, he's going to have to do it on special teams. Is he physical enough to get that done?
Well, I think the big challenge he's going to have is which ones. I mean, obviously the Canadians coming in play punt and punt return, and he has to prove right away that he can do that, and that'll get him on the field real quick.
Dwayne, where does that leave us as far as receivers go, and who's coming up right now?
Well, the #1 guy on my board at this point is a bit of a sleeper in this draft. Spencer Armstrong from Air Force. Teams may shy away from him or have shied away from him so far because he's still got a 2-year military commitment to fulfill, but he may ultimately be the best receiver in this class.
There you go. 4 receivers down, a few more left, Rod.
Yeah, the Toronto Argonauts have not had a lot of success in rounds 1 and 2 previous years here. Have had a lot of success later in the draft, and of course we'll have rounds 3 to 6 on Draft Tracker. We're going to go off the air at the end of the second round. Matt Lambros from Liberty is now a member of the Toronto Argonauts. And now it's the Edmonton Eskimos' turn. And their new head coach, Richie Hall. Here's the board. Here's what they need. Projected starters. And again, a team that was 1 win away from going to the Grey Cup game a year ago.
You know, Rod, there's still some outstanding offensive linemen that are there, that are available in this draft, and I always look there. You know, as quarterback, I'm gonna look there first, right? I want depth there. I want great Canadian talent, you know, because you never know what's going to happen up there. You get nicked, and you need somebody in a hurry. And Schultze, I would expect them, and I'd like to see them go to the offensive line and get some more depth there.
Wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, Edmonton is kind of very easy to assess. You know, you have Jesse Lumsden as the running back, you have Scott Gordon as the free safety, but to me, the key guy to making them go all the way and onto the Grey Cup is Adam Braidwood. Adam Braidwood has been an MMA fighter. He's been a professional boxer. Major respect. Those are tough, combative sports. But there does come a time where you make that transition and you're a football player in the offseason and also during the season. I believe if Adam Braidwood can come back and have the level of impact as a Canadian defensive end, Glenn, as he did previously, that is huge for the Edmonton Eskimos.
Schultze, he's been MIA when it comes to Edmonton a lot because of injury. And,
True.
And I agree with you. So that might be an area they look at. And you mentioned Scott Gordon, too, which is interesting. Richie Hall brings Scott Gordon over from the Saskatchewan Roughriders to Edmonton. And Scott Gordon has been a very consistent player throughout his career, but I could see the Edmonton Eskimos looking in that area, too. The other guy that's still available is a receiver. Now, I know that the Edmonton Eskimos don't necessarily need one. Kamal Peterson had a great year last year, but Scott McHenry is still there from the U of S, and he's a guy that's been rated in the top 10 throughout the last couple of months, and I know he dropped to 11 or 12, but that's another guy that I would think would be interesting to look at.
This is kind of where the guessing begins here in the second round because, you know, you can project what you want in the first round. The numbers kind of play out, but here's a guessing game, and certainly for the Edmonton Eskimos. They last had a #1 selection overall back in 2006, and guess who they took that year? Adam Braidwood. Let's see who they take here in the second round in 2009. Here's the commissioner.
Well, Eski fans have been waiting for a while. With the 11th pick of the CFL Draft, the Edmonton Eskimos select Gordon Hines, offensive lineman from the University of Alberta. Edmonton, you're again now on the clock.
So they don't have to go far. You saw Simeon Rotier go earlier, #1 in the draft, and here's a guy, Dwayne Ford and Farhan, who played on the line with the #1 pick.
Yeah, and was probably somewhat overshadowed, Rod, as a result. He was the tackle on the right side of that Alberta Golden Bears offensive line. Actually overlooked even for an invitation to the Canadian Football League's evaluation camp, but he's a guy who got himself back on the board by going to the annual Laval Combine, performed very well there, and in a year where there are some doubts about the offensive line class, he took advantage of that opportunity.
And Steph, Edmonton needs some depth along the offensive line. Can he contribute right away, or is this guy a player that will likely wind up going back to Alberta and also inside or outside?
Again, he's a kid that has made a living on the outside. That's his natural position. Probably going to have to take reps inside and battle to get on that 7-8 man roster to be a staying CFL candidate. So great athlete. Another big boy that's going to have to do both, inside and out.
Strength a concern for him as well, Steve.
Yeah, I think, you know, the biggest challenge of moving inside from a tackle spot, you mean, you talk about your athleticism of moving your feet, but I think the big thing is you got to take on some big boy 300-pounders inside, and you got to really be able to lock it down in there.
And he'll get to stay at home at the University of Alberta, so their left tackle and right tackle both go in the top 2 rounds. And if you're Tim Princeton, the offensive line coach and former Eskimo at the University of Alberta, you have done a heck of a job.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to the Golden Bears. 2 selections in the first 2 rounds so far. And guess what, Edmonton? You're on the clock again when our Canadian draft coverage continues. So the Edmonton Eskimos go back-to-back here with selections 11 and now 12. Again, they have addressed one need in offensive line. So, guys, do they address the other at linebacker?
Well, Tristan Black is still available. I know he's been rated up in the top 20 for sure. But, you know, I can guarantee you what they don't want and what they don't need. And they don't need Canadians at running back because the Edmonton Eskimos are solid there. With the acquisition of Jesse Lumsden in the offseason, clearly Richie Hall is going to try and go with the Canadian at the running back position. He has the luxury to do that and gives Jesse Lumsden a chance to ease in because he has had some injury issues because of the play of Calvin McCarty. So they don't need a tailback, so they don't need a running back, that's for sure.
Calvin McCarty averaged 8.3 yards per carry last year. I thought he was fabulous. You know, I think he can lose about 5 pounds, can be more of an impact player. Lumsden, he averaged 6.7 yards a carry. Dynamic. On the defensive line, Schultz, you mentioned Adam Braidwood. I think they can use some depth right there, and there's some 3 quality defensive linemen that were rated in the top 15 in this draft that are still available, and I'd like to see Edmonton go that route.
Defensive line, I wouldn't be surprised for a receiver. I don't think they'll go for any more offensive linemen because they still have Greg Wojcik, 6'4", 300 pounds that they have signed, and they're not going to go for a fullback. They got Matthew Bertrand and Graham Bell right now at fullback. So no more running backs.
No more running backs.
Got to figure a linebacker here. We'll see. Commissioner Mark Cohan, take it away.
Okay, we're back to Edmonton. With the 12th pick, the Edmonton Eskimos select D. Sterling, defensive lineman from Queen's University. We're now going back to Hamilton. So Hamilton, again, you are now on the clock.
So it's a defensive player on the line, D. Sterling out of Kingston and out of Queens. Projected a little higher, perhaps. You never know about those projections, but D. Sterling is now a member of the Edmonton Eskimos, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, and there's a big party going on at Jock Climby's house right now. D. Sterling, the first Golden Gale off the board. This is a guy who really climbed with his performance at the Canadian Football League's evaluation camp. Been overshadowed on that defensive line by his teammate, Osi Ukuoma, up until that time, but really outperformed Osi at that camp. Did a terrific job in one-on-ones. Showed that he was physically prepared. I like the upside of D. Sterling because there's still some growth there. He's still got some filling out to do and may be able to move inside and play that tackle spot at the next level.
But for now, the thing he feels he does best is rush the passer. Would you agree?
Oh, he's outstanding. He had 5.5 sacks in one game against Laurier this year. He is very, very active, great motor. He is the first representative from the Ontario Conference in the 2009 draft. So way to represent. Great football player. We got so frustrated running away from him because he tracks everything down. We just had to go right at him.
What about him separated him from his teammate, Osi Ukuoma, who came in as the higher-ranked prospect, but he really seemed to steal the show this year?
Osi's so natural and so gifted. Everything is so smooth. D's a worker. So in terms of the evaluation camp and the testing and the numbers, I think he put himself in a wonderful position just with his work ethic.
D was born in Germany, and his father was raised in North Carolina. He actually played junior college football with a person Canadian football fans will be very familiar with, Grover Covington.
Well, there you go. Joining us on the line now, the general manager of the Edmonton Eskimos, Danny Machocha. How are you, sir? Danny, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear
there
me?
you are. Yeah. How are you doing today? And tell us about the last 2 picks for your team.
Well, we're doing really good here. I mean, we're excited about the 2 picks that we've selected. Obviously, Gord Hines. He wasn't really someone that was highly projected going in a few months ago, but we've been able to keep a close eye on him here the last little while. We've watched a ton of game film. He did go down to the Laval camp, and he performed really well. And when we took a look at some of his numbers, especially even on his bench where he had 23 reps at 2 1/4, that's more than any other offensive lineman had at the combine. So we have obviously an outstanding working relationship with the University of Alberta, and one of our former players here, Tim Princeton, a former Eskimo, is the offensive line coach, and he couldn't stop raving about him. So obviously we selected him with our 11th pick, and we think here over a short period of time he should have some form of impact along the line of scrimmage.
Nice, Danny. That little inside information there. That's outstanding. I want to know, expectation-wise for these 2 guys, though, do you think that there's a chance that either of these guys could start for you?
Well, I think starting is probably a little bit a long shot, but what they will do is provide depth for us, and we expect them to be in green and gold here in the upcoming season. And obviously, even someone like D. Sterling, we need some help along the defensive line. Right now, we only have Braidwood and Cooper, so he'll provide some depth for us. And you know as well as I do, you're never going to line up 18 consecutive weeks with the same 42-man roster. So it may not be year one, but year two, they could be projected as being starters for us, but clearly they will provide some depth.
Before we go, Danny, what's it been like sitting in the chair manning your first draft?
Oh, it's been exciting, but this is obviously a collective effort with our coaching staff here and people like Paul Jones, Dan McKinnon, and Ed Hervey, and they've done an outstanding job. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be excited about where we're at right now.
All right, thanks, Danny. I know you got more work to do with the Edmonton Eskimos in the next few rounds as we move on to the Hamilton Tiger Cats with the next selection and only a minute on the clock.
Yeah, the Ticats, like I mentioned earlier, are in a nice position because this could be an offseason that they can really start to build the foundation of a winning program in Hamilton. I know Marcel Belfait has started to move in that direction. He's going to go with imports at running back with Kenton Keith and Trey Smith. He made that decision in this offseason. That's why Jesse Lumsden isn't there anymore. But interesting to see what he does. This is the pick he gets from the BC Lions in that trade.
Yeah, you look at Ray Marius, who competed and started for them last year, and played well. You know, I could see them adding some quality depth there. And all in all, Schultz, I believe the Hamilton Tiger Cats are in pretty good shape. You know, when they get Dylan Barker back, he could possibly man that free safety position, which is outstanding for them. But I see them coming down a level and possibly looking at a linebacker position.
Well, you know, it's very systematic with Bobo Bilovic. He has his plan of attack. He's been in this league forever. He really does know which players at certain times have an opportunity to start. I think two of the keys, Jermaine Reed and also Matt Kirk, as defensive tackles, they have to be performers, not just players.
I know their record has not said it, but they have gotten better the last couple of years. They're getting better and getting closer and closer. And here they are with the lucky number 13. And here is Commissioner Mark Cohan.
All right, Ticats fans, it's back to you. With the 13th pick, the Hamilton Tiger Cats select Ryan Hines, defensive back from New Hampshire. Montreal is now on the clock.
Ryan Hines from Toronto. We'll just go down the QEW out of New Hampshire. A lot of Canadian players have gone to New Hampshire through the years, and it's been a pretty good breeding ground for some good football players, Wayne.
Yes, Rod Black, it certainly has. Ryan Hines, the next in line. He's a guy who's got another year of eligibility down there to further develop his game. But this is a Canadian player who starts on the corner, so you know he's got pretty good coverage skills. You heard Steph talk a little bit earlier about CFL teams starting to recognize the ability of Canadian players to maybe play that wide side corner. The other thing with Hines, 190 pounds, may fill out a little bit more and may be able to move inside to that safety spot, which we know for the Hamilton Tiger Cats with Dylan Barker is becoming a Canadian position.
Dwayne, Hines was not rated as a top 2-round guy coming into this draft. What made him climb as fast as he did since the E-Camp?
Well, I think the biggest thing about Ryan Hines for a lot of teams is he really was on their radar for the early going because he had proven himself as a starter at that NCAA level. And you know, again, you're getting a little bit more of that finished product. So sometimes it may take a little bit of time for teams to see the film on the NCAA guys after the E-Camp, and that may have been the biggest thing that has benefited him since that time.
Does he stay inside or outside on the corner?
You know, I think it really depends on what the Hamilton Tiger Cats have in mind as far as the ratio, but when you pick a guy like this, who you could make an argument is one of the best defensive players and certainly the best defensive back on the board at this point in the draft, you could make an argument for letting him try his natural position of corner, because if he succeeds, that's a real boon for you as far as the ratio goes.
And he's following in the footsteps of his former teammate, Etienne Boulay of Montreal. Rod?
Yes, speaking of Montreal, the Alouettes will select the next two picks coming up in the Canadian draft. We still have had no linebackers chosen yet, maybe to come as our coverage continues on TSN. Back with our coverage of the Canadian draft, the Montreal Alouettes took Dylan Steenbergen, an offensive lineman, in the first round with the 7th selection. They will now pick in the 14 slot and the 15 slot unless they don't make a trade. We had one linebacker selected in the first round. We've had no linebackers selected in the second round. Perhaps here with one of the two picks, perhaps a linebacker. They went big on linebackers last year.
Yeah, because, you know, when you look at the draft and you look at the best athlete first, we've heard that, and also about the need of the football team. And again, in Montreal, they have great depth at Canadians. So it could be right now that Jim Popp and the rest of the staff there in Montreal, Mark Trestman, the head coach, may be looking at special teams help at this point in the draft. And, you know, Shea Emery last year was a guy who stepped in there and a draft pick who really excelled on the special teams, was a big part of that. And, you know, when you got a guy, if you can provide some depth to your defense, but get a guy like Shea Emery that becomes a force, not just a guy. Because remember, in the CFL, the special teams are 1/3 of the game. They're very important. Rod, you mentioned linebackers. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Tristan Black go now, because Montreal loves that special team help, and they love guys that are tough.
I'm staying in the interior with the defensive linemen. I think they need help at defensive linemen, and I think that's where Montreal goes next.
Okay, well, let's see. Again, they have 2 selections here, so they can do a lot. Let's see what they do. Here's Commissioner Cohen.
Well, it's the Owls' turn again, and with the 14th pick, the Montreal Alouettes select Martin Bedard, tight end from the University of Connecticut. Montreal, again, you are now on the clock.
Martin Bedard, out of Laval and out of Connecticut. There are the numbers from E-Camp, but tell us more about Mr. Bedard, Mr. Ford.
Well, this is a guy, what he brings to the table is not necessarily the best package in terms of his athletic ability. You don't see athletic scores, test scores that are going to wow you. But he's a guy who played as a blocking tight end primarily at Connecticut. Has good hands, though. He can catch the ball a little bit. Could convert to that fullback spot, play short yardage situations. But one of the other added bonuses for Martin Bedard, this is a guy who can long snap. And I know Montreal and Jim Popp, they like to have a few of those guys on hand. It offers you a little bit of flexibility as far as your overall roster.
Bedard is from Laval, but he played at Connecticut, and he's kind of like your big guy, Darcy Brown, a guy that's trying to make that conversion. Do you see this fitting for him?
Yeah, I think so. I think what he's going to bring is the size and athleticism that's going to be able to move from position to that fullback position. It's sort of a natural thing, and the way you see teams starting to go to that double tight look, he's going to be able to definitely step in and help out.
Yeah, the league seems to be going in that direction now with some big physical receivers. Obviously, Jason Claremont, we've got one in Calgary now, and that seems to be a trend.
Well, I think one of the reasons for it is because teams have gotten smaller and quicker on defense. And because of that, now you've got to look at, well, how are we going to counter that? Let's go bigger on the inside.
Dwayne, he's also a big long snapper. How big of a factor is that in this move?
Well, that's very significant for the Montreal Alouettes. Special teams, literally a third of the game. You've got to have someone who is money on the long snaps, and Martin Bedard is a guy who, first of all, can fill that function, fill that role for your team, but he's also big enough that you don't worry about leaving big gaps beside him or having him being a liability in terms of your blocking schemes or your protection schemes. But beyond that, as a tight end, rather than having an offensive lineman doing that job, you've got a guy who can help out in coverage a little bit if he is left unblocked.
Steph, how difficult is the transition from tight end in the American game to slot back in the Canadian game?
Assignments aren't that different. The difference is you get a running start. So body control when you get to roll into some of your assignments, if you're a fullback or a slot back, it's just a little timing and taking an adjustment. It's a different game with all that motion. He'll be fine.
Yeah, and if nothing else, he's had a chance to play against some big-time competition, played against Big 8 teams, played against teams like Syracuse and things like that. So he's certainly going to be ready for prime time. Rod?
Well, it's nice to have a guy like that. Montreal Alouettes will go again, but Schultze, it's nice to have a guy who's versatile, and this is where you get some of those players, maybe beyond the first round, into the second round, and as Suits alluded to a little earlier, a guy who is capable of playing special teams.
You know, versatile, but also he has a specific skill, and that specific skill will be on short yardage. One of the most difficult things to do is you have a fullback, and he has to block that linebacker. There's a 7-yard separation, and it's mano a mano. Montreal struggled with their short yardage last year. They've got to find a guy who has that ability to create that collision, win that collision in short yardage, and produce touchdowns instead of field goals. Is this the guy to do it? Well, me and Dwayne Ford were talking about this. The fullback seems to be a dying breed in the Canadian Football League, and I think that's wrong because fullbacks are specific players for key moments. And if you have a kid that's 250 that can launch himself and create that collision, you have a talented athlete because it takes courage.
I think what piqued Pop's interest was a long snapper. I think Dwayne Ford hit it on the head. You know, the only time, guys, you worry about your long snapper is when your long snapper goes down and you don't have one. And this kid is going to provide him depth there, and he's a quality long snapper. You know, he's not the fastest guy, but he is going to be able to bang and get down and help on special teams right away. But offensively, I look at what Montreal does in the Trestman offense. I don't see a tight end there anywhere. I don't. So I think that's strictly a special teams move by Montreal.
Yeah, you know, interesting in the draft when you see the ratings coming in and how some guys have all of a sudden sort of slipped and disappeared off the map. You know, such great success for the Montreal Alouettes since 2000. 16 of their 60 players have been starters on their football team. 20 have started in the CFL. That's a great percentage when you look at any draft in any league. So they have been able to build depth and build Canadian talent. I look down at this list, guys, and what blows my mind is that there's still some really good offensive linemen on this list, including Matt Morency that we were talking about right out of the gate as maybe in the top 5. He's still available.
And some defensive linemen as well, and some defensive backs. You know, some quality guys out there waiting for the opportunity.
Well, Montreal Alouettes again on the clock. Here's a buzzer beater. They're going to make their selection right now. And here, once again, Mr. Commissioner.
Well, it's the Owls' turn again, and the 15th pick of the CFL Draft. The Montreal Alouettes select Matt Singer, offensive lineman from the University of Manitoba. Calgary is now on the clock.
Well, Brian Dobie will be very happy with that. Matt Singer of the University of Manitoba. Of course, the Bisons kind of fell flat last season, a year after winning the Vanier Cup. And with more on Matt Singer, let's hear from our panel.
Matt Singer is certainly a big surprise with this pick. Singer is a guy who really wasn't on anybody's radar, apparently, except the Montreal Alouettes. But this is a situation, the type of move we've seen them pull before. They did this in 2007. They took Richard Yalowski from the University of Calgary in the first round. He was a guy who had been injured for a lot of his career, had shown some good things, but Montreal picked based on need at that time. They followed that up with Daryl Conrad from the University of Manitoba. Neither of those picks really panned out for the Alouettes, so I'm a little surprised to see them go so far off the radar. But here you've got a guy, Matt Singer, a big body, 6'2", well over 300 pounds. Montreal is stocking up on some beef on that offensive line.
Let's look at the top 10 offensive linemen so far in this draft, and he's not even on the list.
No, he really wasn't on the list. As I said, he wasn't on my radar. He certainly wasn't on the radar of most of the other teams in the Canadian Football League, so I'm a little bit surprised to see him go quite this high.
Well, you look at number 2 on that board, and you take a look at Matt Morency, and it's just a shock that he is still available at this point, Rod.
Don't be surprised, but the Calgary Stampeders will select next. They're loaded with offensive linemen, so you never know. But Matt Singer comes out of nowhere, gets on the radar map from the University of Manitoba. Good for him. Well, here it is, the defending Grey Cup champions. We took Eric Fraser, DB, in the first round. 8th overall. They get the final selection before we go off the air. Don't forget the draft continues rounds 3 to 6. CFL.ca, of course, and the draft tracker. So the Calgary Stampeders come in. I think you guys are a little shocked here that a couple of players haven't been selected yet.
Well, a little shocked that a guy like Matt Morency, who is in the top 3 for most of the projections, and that includes a lot of the coaches that we talked to throughout the last month or so, has not gone yet. But that doesn't mean he can't have success. I mean, there's been lots, Matty, of late draft picks that have stepped up and been starters, including Brett Ralph.
Brett Ralph, 2003 was his last year playing collegiate football. He was drafted in 2005. 45th of 48 players in 2005, and he has not missed a game for the Calgary Stampeders, 72 straight games. So those players are out there available looking for that opportunity, Schultz.
You know what it is, too? Sometimes it's really tough if you have a kid who's a defensive back and he's a linebacker, or you have a kid who's an offensive guard and he's a center, but he doesn't have a specific strength. So all of a sudden, teams are wondering, where does he really fit on our football team? And if I was picking a kid, I want a specific strength. I want a Simeon Rotier. I know I can move him in on guard and then eventually a tackle. But when you don't have a specific strength, I think that creates some hesitation on clubs.
Yeah, and the bottom line is that's why you hear, I guess, guys, coaches always talk about the fact that they're taking the best athlete rather than trying to fill a position, because that can get you in trouble. But if you're a young kid out there that's draft eligible, don't worry. Whether it's the 3rd round, the 4th round, the 5th round, you get into a training camp, you got a shot. So we have one more pick in this round, but hang in there.
That's exactly it, because, we know that you're a Czech. The linebacker went 4th to the BC Lions, and that's high. Because you talk to the other teams, and they've got them rated as 40th on their list of quality players. And so it's a very subjective thing, and players, just relax a little bit, and, your time is coming.
And it's a great point. I think great point what you made earlier, too, Schultz, is that this is step 1. Step 2 is the even bigger step.
Make the team.
Yeah, you got to make the team. Let's go to the final selection of our coverage. Final selection of round number 2. Once again, the defending Grey Cup champions make it, and here is the commissioner.
As this is the last pick in the 2nd round, first of all, I want to say thank you to our fans from across this country who have tuned in today. And here's the pick. So with the 16th pick of the CFL Draft, our Grey Cup champions select Tristan Black, linebacker from Wayne State. Saskatchewan, you are now on the clock.
Saskatchewan is on the clock, and again, go to CFL.ca for the draft tracker. But here it is, Tristan Black. Maybe his stock fell a little bit as far as today's draft was concerned. Some people projected him as a 1st rounder out of Wayne State. What did you think about this selection for the Calgary Stampeders, Dwayne?
Well, this is a situation for Calgary where a guy fell into their lap. They just couldn't pass Tristan Black up when he fell this far. A very well-regarded player, a guy who is physically ready to play, has played a lot of football in 4 years at Wayne State, which is a Division II school. Big, strong linebacker. For Calgary, a team that plays a Canadian defensive end, he could ultimately end up on the line of scrimmage. But the fact is, unable to pass him up. I know some teams shied away from Tristan a little bit because they were concerned about that 5-flat 40, and that may have held him back a little bit as a linebacker. But as I said, could project to the defensive end spot.
Confidence is not an issue for this young man. I spoke to him last night. He was disappointed Toronto wasn't considering him with the 2nd overall pick. He thought he was the best available player in the draft, period. He's a tackling machine, 101 tackles last year. Inside backer, outside backer, where does he fit?
From the film, he's the best pure run stopper that's coming out this year. In the CFL game, that's a different role. Wayne State, there's probably a little more run game to stuff. 3-down football, he'll have to adjust to the space and the speed of the game. That 5-flat 40 is a concern. That's probably why he's 16th as opposed to 2nd, was where he thought he should be.
Well, he's certainly not Mr. Irrelevant because we're talking about him on TSN. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us. Steve Samara, Stefan Potasic, I know you've finished with your recruiting and you finished with spring ball, so enjoy a bit of time before the fall season gets going.
Well, thank you.
All right, then, Dwayne, Mel Kiper of Canada right here. Fabulous job as always. He knows everything about every one of these guys, and he'll be anxiously watching the next 4 rounds of the draft. Rod?
Yeah, absolutely. And, okay, so Tristan Black falls into the lap right now of the Montreal Alouettes, or Calgary Stampeders. Does this mean that Matt Morency now might fall into the lap of the Saskatchewan Roughriders who fall in the next round?
Without question, and now you're looking at trying to get depth and put depth into the roster. But again, with Matt Morency, as high as he's been rated, a guy that could possibly start for you. So, yeah, there's still a lot of great picks out there. And I was surprised, guys, that Dwayne Ford wasn't picked up as the next general manager.
That's coming. That's coming very soon.
Yeah, that is, absolutely. Let's go through what has been a very interesting day. Not a lot of surprises in that 1st round. Simeon Rotier, Etienne Legare, Jamal Lee going number 3, BC making that deal. James Irichuk did catapult himself up to number 4. Matt Carter, and then you see Darcy Brown, Dylan Steenbergen, Aaron Fraser, and then in the 2nd round where more of the surprises actually happened. Tamon George, Matt Lambros, Gord Hines, and then down there, Matt Singer from the University of Manitoba will go to the Montreal Alouettes camp, and Calgary gets Tristan Black. So all of these guys, we've had 16 players, 32 to go, and again, on CFL.ca, you'll get a chance to see who gets picked now. What did you guys think about the draft today?
I thought it was very interesting how the players moved. I like that there was a trade. And, for a highlight for me is when a team like Saskatchewan picks a homegrown talent. I think that's always great when you can draft a guy from your area.
It's the beginning for many careers for young men that have been drafted. And for those who haven't been drafted, keep your head up. There's an opportunity. You can go undrafted. You can walk on to teams, and you can make your way, find your way. Just keep working hard.
In the following rounds, this is where the football teams really earn their money, and this is where their scouting staff earns their money. There's a lot of great Canadian Football League players that have been drafted in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th round, and also free agency. It happens.
It does happen. Again, go to CFL.ca, check the draft tracker, all of the players out there certainly. And remember last year, a lot of people didn't hear about Dimitri Sumpas unless you followed his team in college or Dylan Barker, but guess what? All of the names like Simeon Rochier and Etienne Legaret and all of these other guys, Jamal Lee, you're going to be hearing a lot more about them. They have been selected, and they'll go to training camp in the Canadian Football League. The CFL on TSN, our season begins on July 1st, a month away from training camp, where some of these guys will be headed. 2 months away from the regular season for our entire panel here. Thanks to all the players involved. Good luck to them, and thanks for watching TSN, Canada's sports leader, the Canadian Draft of the CFL.